short story by the Irish writer George Moore. It's set in the turn of the 19th and 20th century. A play was made from this short story, and Glenn Close starred in it as Albert in the early 1980s. And it was a role that always stayed with her. You know, she could never shake it off, and for years wanted to make a movie out of it. And I think for the better part of the last 20 years, she's been developing a script with different people, writing a lot of it herself, trying to get it off the ground. So, you know, you could say fairly that it's one of the passion projects of her life. And when I read the script, I understood why. It's a powerful story, very simple, but with powerful conflicts, and with a character that is, very unique, very original. So I'm not surprised that, she could never move away from it. And they're a very good match. I think Nobbs was born for Glenn to play her.
I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience in a second, but one thing I thought that was interesting about the film is you had almost an international cast of talent, and yourself included in that, working on this very Irish film between Glenn Close and yourself being from Colombia. How did that work out in terms of representing the Irishness of the story?
Well, I mean, it's certainly a challenge, but obviously that's, any movie that you make takes you somewhere. I mean, sometimes, even if they're set in your own culture, in your own language, you have to go, you have to take the journey to the characters' lives, to the characters' psychology. Obviously, if you're traveling to another country, you have to do the historical research, and there's a language, and there's an accent, etc. There's more work to be done, but that's part of the journey, something that takes you out of your own head and into the world of another story. So, I found it fun. Obviously, it's a little daunting. I'm Colombian, I grew up in Mexico, now I live in Los Angeles, and I'm heading over to Dublin to make an Irish movie with Irish actors and technicians. Yes, I mean, you want to, give it the work that it deserves and give it its due, and not have anyone think that you're just basically phoning it in. But that's half the fun and the extraordinary privilege of making movies.
I just want to open it up for a second to the audience. Do people have any questions you'd like to ask in advance of seeing the film? Anybody out there?
Yeah. How did you get involved in this project from the beginning? I mean, how did you get involved in the project?
We're getting feedback on this. Hang on a second. How did you get involved in this project? Glenn Close came to you. What was your relationship to the project as it started?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Okay. That's right. How did you get involved in the project? Tell the story of how you got attached to it.
I had worked with Glenn on a couple of movies before, and after the last one that we did before Nobbs, 9 Lives, she'd spoken about this generally, but she wanted to show me the script and asked me if I'd be interested in being involved, even before reading the script. Obviously I was flattered that she asked and wanted to be involved because I knew how much it meant to her. But after reading the script, like I said before, I thought, the story was very compelling and the character very, very unusual. And I thought most of all that it was very much a story of its period, but there was also something timeless about it, which is, I think, even though mores change and, customs and, cultures are different, I think it's not uncommon of any place and of any time that there's always something about yourself that you have to hide, that you have to inhibit, that you have to suppress in order to fit into your environment, in order to perhaps be accepted, or even if you're accepted, to do better, to move ahead. That's the story of, everyone in this movie wants a better version of themselves, feels that there's a better them inside themselves, and wants to fulfill the dream of fulfillment. So, I thought those were very compelling themes.
Other questions from the audience? Hey, I have a question that I've been thinking about. The short story is from 19th century, from a 19th century Irish writer. Did you guys do any research to find out to what extent it was inspired by a real life story that the author knew about?
The way the story is told, it's told in the first person, as if the author, he tells a story of spending time as a child with his parents in a hotel where there was this very peculiar character, the head butler, Albert Nobbs. You know, we have no reason to believe that it's based on an actual person, but, you know, there were many instances, some of them that we found not only in Ireland, but in many places in Europe and Australia, and, you know, in all countries, there's always been, you know, women that just to make a living, just because if they had no money, no husband, no relatives, you know, in many cultures, the option for a woman with no money was the street, the poorhouse, prostitution. So whenever, you know, women could get away with working as, you know, as in the case of Nobbs, as a waiter, or sometimes as, you know, as a miner or as a field hand, you know, it's not uncommon. And certainly, you know, even nowadays you hear in Afghanistan, you know, young girls, if the parents need them to run errands, sometimes they will dress them as boys to run an errand. So, you know, these, you know, the things women have had to do to exist are, I'm sure, defeat all imagination, to survive, rather.
Okay, Rodrigo, we're going to let you go so people can see the film. And thank you so much for the privilege of having you here with us tonight at the opening in May.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to the film on opening night.